What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Waiver Wire Queen. So week 3 is almost over. We have the Cowboys and the Giants left, and it's time to discuss our week 4 potential waiver wire ads. So today's episode, we are going to talk about some great options for you to pick up this week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content which will help you prepare every week so you can be ahead of your competition and compete at the highest level every week in fantasy football. So let's start talking about potential waiver wire ads. We'll start this thing off with our quarterback position. There's some quarterbacks struggling. Winston is struggling. He's dealing with some injuries. Justin Herbert, in my opinion, should have never been on the field Sunday simply because he didn't look great. Dealing with a rib cartilage injury, should not be out there. Here are some options, if nothing else, quarterbacks who can end up being your backup and fill in on a bye week. Let's kick this thing off with Geno Smith with the Seahawks. Surprisingly, I have him on this list, but Geno has played very well. I know the Seahawks haven't won many games, but Geno Smith has been serviceable and better than some quarterbacks who you may have on your roster and potentially starting. Let's be clear. Russell Wilson hasn't played great. In a dynasty league, there are people who had high expectations this season for Justin Fields, and he is simply not playing well. So, in my opinion, my preference in any redraft league, if I had to have Justin Fields or Geno Smith on my roster, it would be Geno Smith because right now he is playing much better. So consider adding Geno Smith, if nothing else, to help you at the quarterback position for depth. He has been great. 730 yards so far on the season, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Simply amazing so far this season. Another great option at the quarterback position is Jacoby Brissett. You already know that at some point Watson is going to return. So with Jacoby Brissett, he may be able to help you early on with some bye weeks. And he's been playing well enough to deserve that roster spot to help you with a bye week, especially if you don't have someone you feel confident in with the bye weeks. Dak's out. Lance is out. Then again, we talked about some quarterbacks dealing with injuries. Jacoby Brissett is serviceable and may be able to help you. He so far is playing very well. He's managing the game for the Browns, and they may be in very good shape once Watson returns to the football field. So far in the season, 92 attempts, 61 completions, 596 yards, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. Love that touchdown interception ratio. Would love to see him get a little more touchdowns in there. As you can see, also, him and Amari Cooper are developing a great rapport. They have some excellent chemistry, which has made me confident when I do start Cooper. I was afraid and concerned to start him, but these two have a great connection, and he's looking for Cooper, and it is working. It looks like the Cowboys should have kept Amari Cooper or gotten a higher return on him. But nonetheless, Jacoby Brissett, and he has a very good matchup week 4 versus the Falcons. So if you have the opportunity to add Jacoby Brissett, if you are struggling with your quarterbacks, then Jacoby Brissett is great. And he's also going to kick in and add some rushing yards as well. He has 64 in the season. So Jacoby Brissett, y'all, pick him up. And another great add at the quarterback position is Jimmy G with the 49ers. You all know Trey Lance is out for the season. And so Jimmy G is now the starting quarterback for the 49ers. He's a very good game manager. He's going to get the 49er core guys involved. That's Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo. He's going to get those guys involved. He's going to control the game. He's not going to turn the ball over a whole lot. If you don't trust him as a starter, then best believe he can be that quarterback to come off your bench. Again, if you have Dak Prescott and you know that he's out and you don't have someone you feel confident enough to pick up that slack, then Jimmy G should be able to help you. Gotta always make sure you have a solid backup in place in the event that there's some injuries. And there have been a few already so far with the quarterbacks, whether they are playing through those injuries, they're not playing that great. Again, I said that Justin Herbert most likely should have sat because they lost the game. And fantasy wise, he really did not give you a competitive advantage over your competition this week. Let's talk about some running backs who you should put your claim in for this week. The top running back ad should be Khalil Herbert with the Bears. David Montgomery is dealing with an ankle injury, left the game with an ankle injury. He has looked okay at times, but dealing with some injuries, and Khalil Herbert got in there, looked great, and had a career game, 20 rushing attempts, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions, and 12 yards. So he had a very good game against Houston. If you have David Montgomery, then you should try to pick up Khalil Herbert. Hell, if you are trying to add a running back to your team because, say, the running backs you have right now are struggling, then Khalil Herbert will see an increase in his snaps. And again, if David Montgomery has to miss some time, that he is going to fill in and play a whole lot more and help your team every week. You have to think ahead. We talked about Khalil Herbert the last 2 weeks, and this is the time to add him. If they say Montgomery can go, I would still add Khalil Herbert, because again, David Montgomery dealing with the ankle injury, and you know how that can be. So I would say, even so, be cautious going forward with Montgomery, because you know week 4, okay, comes around and say he is able to go, he gets out there and he tweaks that ankle injury. So that's something else you should keep in mind. And again, Herbert should be the top ad at the running back position. But there are other running backs who you may be able to try to pick up if you put a claim in for Herbert and it does not work. Alexander Mattison, I always say handcuff him to Dalvin Cook. If you draft Dalvin Cook, you draft Alexander Mattison, simply because we all know that Dalvin Cook, he misses time every season dealing with injuries. He's very good, but there's going to be those few games where you're going to miss out on that production. Mattison over the years has played well. So we know that Cook is dealing with some type of shoulder dislocation injury, dislocated, I believe, during the game. And it's time to make sure that if you have Cook, you already have Mattison. But if not, you need to be putting your claim in and make him a priority, especially if, say, you tried to put in a claim and you couldn't get Herbert, then you better pick up Mattison, because if Dalvin Cook has to miss any time or re-aggravates that shoulder and he dislocates it again, and say he is out for an extended period of time, you're going to miss out on that production. So you want to have a plan B in the event that he has to miss time or he ends up dislocating that shoulder again. And why not get Mattison, who has proven to us that he can get in the game and fill in nicely for Dalvin Cook. Another great ad, and he should be high up there, and he is still slightly available in leagues. He's rostered at a high percentage, but he's still rostered less than 70%. Jamal Williams with the Lions. He is obviously playing behind Swift. However, he's still getting in the game, and he is playing extremely well, and he is making the most of his opportunity. So far in the season, 168 yards and 4 touchdowns. Very impressive. Had a very good week 3, and he is playing extremely well and should be a player that you consider. He's a player that you can always put in your lineup as a flex play, because you know that he is going to be involved and he's a part of what the Lions do offensively. Even though Swift is the lead guy, he is going to be a part of what they do every week. So he's a great flex play. If Swift has to miss any time, then Williams is definitely a great option. So if he is still available in your leagues, pick him up. Do not wait until something happens and now you're trying to put in that claim. And guess what? Now everybody is trying to put in that claim. So if he's still available, then make him your option to pick up. A few wild cards that you should consider picking up. Kenneth Walker with the Seahawks. He is starting to play more and they are getting him involved as a receiving back. He is seeing some work on third downs, and this is exciting because he's been through a lot, dealt with a lot of injuries so far since being drafted, and now he is healthy. Rashard Penny is the lead back, but you do know that Rashard's history is that he is very injury prone, and so in the event that something happens to Rashard Penny, Kenneth Walker will instantly be the lead back. But let's be clear, Pete Carroll really loves Walker, so he's definitely going to get him involved more as the season goes on. So if you want to stash Kenneth Walker on your bench, if you have the space for him, do so. Another add, and this is for deep leagues, if you're just looking to add a running back on your team, Tyler Algier. Let's kick it off with our wide receivers. We have a very deep, talented group here, and these guys simply will be able to help you every week, whether it's flex play. I know in some leagues you may have to start 3 wide receivers, and you just may want to have that security that you have some good options coming off your bench in the event that someone gets hurt or there's a bye week. Romeo Doubs with the Packers had an amazing week against Tampa. The goal was to get him more involved, and they utilized him a lot more. He had 8 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Very good production from Dobbs this week. And going forward, they are going to get him involved more. You already know the wide receivers for the Packers, it's very suspect. So don't just pick him up and think you're going to put him in week 4 unless you know that they are going to continue to get him involved. And I do expect them to do that, but don't have these extremely high expectations, because there may be a week where he's not going to produce 773 and a touchdown. But the goal is to start getting him more involved. So when you have more opportunities, then you have the chance to produce. So increased role, more opportunities, someone you need to add on your team, and he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. So that's another plus. Another great add at the wide receiver position is Greg Dortch with the Cardinals. We've talked about him a few weeks. He is still playing very well. Again, he has value as long as Rondale Moore and DeAndre Hopkins are out. And Hopkins is still dealing with his suspension. He still has a few more weeks. Rondale Moore with the hamstring, we don't know when he's going to return. Hasn't played yet this season. And Greg has looked impressive so far on the season. 22 targets, 19 receptions, 1 touchdown, and 198 yards. Anyone expect that from him? No. I'll tell you this. I had the opportunity to watch the Cardinals during preseason, and he looked great. So when he made the team, I was not surprised. I just hope they could still find a role for him on the team when Hopkins and Moore returns. But again, when you're looking for players on waivers, you are looking for players who can help you and impact your team in a positive way. And he has. So if you've been starting him, he has produced for you every week since entering the starting lineup for the Cardinals. So if you have the opportunity to pick him up because he is still available, then you need to do so. Another great ad is Sterling Shepard with the New York Giants. My Giants. Yes, he is the clear-cut #1 wide receiver. We thought it was going to be Golladay. No, we thought it was going to most likely be Kadarius Toney. He's doubtful for the Monday night game versus the Cowboys. So he's just simply dealing with so many injuries since he was drafted. It's been nothing but injury. So we cannot rely on him. And we're moving forward with Sterling Shepard as the wide receiver 1 for the Giants. Wan'Dale is out as well. What we do know is Sterling Shepard has always been the most reliable wide receiver since OBJ was traded to the Browns. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration. And again, too, when healthy, he has produced and looked really good and is consistent. And then you have to factor in the fact that he has a great rapport with Daniel Jones. And when you have a great rapport, excellent chemistry, he's going to look for you. So if you have the opportunity to pick up Sterling Shepard, do so. 14 targets, 8 receptions on the season, 105 yards over the first 2 weeks. Another great ad is rookie George Pickens. And this is my wild card at the wide receiver position. He obviously made the catch of the year. In a dynasty league, he should be rostered 100%. Obviously, he may still be a few weeks away from producing more consistently. I like him long-term better than Claypool. George Pickens is going to continue to see more opportunities on the field because one thing about it, he's going to block. When they're out there, Najee Harris trying to run the ball, George Pickens going to knock somebody over, okay? He's big, he's strong. He's going to go up and get the ball because let's be clear, the catch he made, he had to go and do a whole lot of stretching out because Mitch just, overthrows people or underthrows people. I'll tell you this. The only issue and this is for all of the wide receivers with the Steelers, is they may some games struggle throughout the game or maybe just early on or different periods of times playing because Mitch is struggling and he's simply not great at the quarterback position. And you got to take the good with the bad. So Pickens is a few weeks away to me from a big game, and it may happen sooner. So if you have a spot at the end of your bench, you need to start looking and prioritize someone like a George Pickens, because once he is able to have that big game, it's going to be impressive, and he's going to continue to have good, solid games. Another solid ad is Devontae Parker with the Patriots. He has great value as long as Jacoby Myers is out. Jacoby Myers is obviously the number one, but him being unable to go week 3, Devontae Parker received all the targets. 10 targets, 5 receptions, 156 yards. Week 3 versus the Ravens, simply amazing. One thing to keep in mind is that Mac Jones got hurt late in the game. It may be an ankle injury, so you have to factor that in and see if Mac Jones can go, because if Mac Jones cannot go, then who's going to be the starter? Is it going to be Brian Hoyer? It's most likely going to be him because I know they're not going to put the rookie in. So that is something to keep in mind if you were considering adding Devontae Parker to your roster. Another solid add is Zay Jones with the Jaguars. He has been a part of what they are doing down there. The Jaguars are starting to put things together on offense. And again, Zay is a part of that offensive unit. 24 targets, 19 receptions, 173 yards, and 1 touchdown. He is available. And again, that type of production, especially since he is consistently being targeted, is someone you want to have on your bench. And again, he may be able to help you on bye weeks or if there are injuries going on with your team. Another great ad, and we talked about him last week, and he started off the game strong this week, is Garrett Wilson with the Jets. Garrett Wilson is putting together a really good season. I'll tell you this, just keep in mind, he left the game early with a rib injury. So that is something you have to consider if you are thinking about adding him or even playing him. So make sure you do your homework and see if he is going to be able to go week 4. But I do expect him to be good, whether he misses a few weeks. So he's a player that I would add to my team and just put him on my bench or in IR if he is out a few games. So consider picking him up if he is still available. 18 receptions, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. And this is another thing to factor in. He is building a great rapport, this excellent chemistry with Joe Flacco. At some point, Zach Wilson is going to return, and we have to see who he's going to build that rapport with, because right now Joe Flacco's favorites are obviously Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin. Those are the guys he is really getting involved and has built a great rapport with. So that is something to keep in mind. Another great ad is Chris Olave with the Saints. If you have him in a dynasty league, kudos to you. I wish I had some stock in Chris Olave. I watched early on before the season started. This was after our draft in a redraft league. Someone released Chris Olave. I couldn't get him. I was very upset, but some players you just don't release. I don't care if they're struggling. It's only week 3. Okay. Chris Olave had an excellent week 3, a huge week 3, 9 receptions, 147 yards. Also keep in mind, Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry left the game. They were dealing with some injuries. So if Thomas and Landry have to miss time, just know that Chris Olave is going to end up being the number 1 target for Winston. So if Chris Olave is still out there, you want him on your team. You don't want him on the other team going up against you week 4. So if Chris Olave is available, make sure you pick him up. Now let's talk about these tight ends. This is a tough situation with the tight end position. There's tight ends who just simply aren't producing. We know that Pitts looked bad the first 2 weeks, bounced back this week. Like I said, with Pitts, be patient. It's more on the quarterback than Pitts. And there are some tight ends that, again, just not producing, or some tight ends you thought were going to be the guys who really stepped up this season, and it just hasn't materialized yet. So be patient. Don't just release players who have really who will have value later on. So consider picking these tight ends up. Will Dissly, that's right, y'all. Will Dissly with the Seattle Seahawks. We know that they have Noah Fant, but sometimes Will Dissly is more involved offensively than Noah. But week 3, the Seattle Seahawks got both of those tight ends involved. I will tell you this, as long as Will Dissly is in the rotation and involved, and you add him, he has great value, especially in the red zone, because they definitely look for him. So if you can add him, make sure you do so, because he is a part of what they're doing. And if you're dealing with tight ends who are struggling, he's not struggling. No problem with putting him on the end of your bench. We already know Gesicki, it's like, oh, damn. Austin Hooper, damn. I mean, a lot of tight ends are struggling or have been inconsistent so far the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't recommend releasing Gesicki just yet. Let's just see a little bit more. Also consider if Dalton Schultz has to miss any time as well. I typically don't like going into Monday without a plan B, not knowing if players are going to be available, because you don't have any options after that. So if Dalton Schultz has to miss any time, I'm not saying Will Dissly is about to be the next Dalton Schultz, but I'm saying it's kind of late in the game to really be able to get a top tight end. But if you can get one that's serviceable to help you alleviate some of the production that may be missed due to tight ends being unavailable due to injuries, then Will Dissly may be able to help you. Not every week, but some weeks. And also look at those matchups when the Seattle Seahawks are playing. He may have a favorable matchup. There may be weeks where it's more of a Noah Fant situation. But again, today it appeared that both guys were able to get involved and get some type of production, which some production is better than no production. Just imagine if you didn't get anything, and that was the difference between you winning week 3 or losing week 3. Another great ad, and the best tight end available right now is Tyler Conklin, in my opinion, with the Jets. He's definitely the number 1 tight end for the Jets. I don't expect his production to decrease once Zach Wilson returns, because again, I feel like he's the number one guy. He had a hell of a season with the Vikings. And that's why I thought it was kind of crazy for the Jets to sign him. Then you signed Uzamu. Then you drafted Rucker. I understand you need some tight ends, but damn, which one of these is going to be the guy? Well, we know who's going to be the guy because he's been the guy and he has played extremely well. We do know that Joe loves to target the tight end position, and that's what's going on right now. But again, I do anticipate he will still have value once Zach Wilson returns. So if you can pick up Tyler Conklin, do so. 24 targets, 18 receptions, 140 yards on the season. And he's been amazing, okay? So if you can pick him up, go on and pick him up. Another great ad, and it's surprising that he is still out there. David Njoku with the Browns. He went off week 3 versus the Steelers. 9 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Went off. They looked for him, got him involved. And I anticipate he'll have more opportunities because, in my opinion, Amari Cooper is the number 1 target in the passing game, and then it should be David Njoku, in my opinion, if not Kareem Hunt. And sometimes I feel like they don't get Kareem Hunt involved as much. I could be saying that because I have him, and the last 2 weeks it's like, where Kareem at? Get him more involved. But David Njoku should not be on waivers. And once Watson returns, he's definitely going to get involved because if nothing else, Watson does look for his tight ends, especially in the red zone. And David Njoku should be more involved. And I anticipate going forward, he will be more involved offensively for the Browns. So if you can pick him up, they're going to pick him up some extreme wild cards that may not produce every week, but still maybe they will. Mac Hollins with the Raiders. He, in my opinion, is the number 2 opposite of Devontae Adams right now. We know that Hunter Renfrow is hurt. We're seeing Mac Hollins play over 80+% of the snaps, which means he is on the football field a lot. And if they're doubling or triple teaming Devontae Adams, then you're going to see Hunter Renfrow, obviously. And if Hunter Renfrow is out anymore after week 2, then Mac Hollins will still be involved. He's definitely that wild card hit or miss with the long, deep balls, deep threats. So if you want to pick him up because, again, you still have to consider your bench. And this can be a great ad, deep leagues. Look at players who can help on your bench because I know sometimes when you look on waivers, it's not a lot out there. It's bare. Hollins may be able to help you in the event that, you weren't able to pick up the other wide receivers. If you started him this week, like I know some people did, I actually picked him up this week, and I'm going to keep him on my team. I picked him up. I noticed him last week. And when I look at players that I'm looking at to pick up, I'm also looking at how often they are on the football field and what are they doing out there. And he's been on the field, hit or miss, but I have him on my bench. What if someone else I was playing picked him up and then they would have played him today? So if nothing else, you may be adding players to prevent them from hurting you 1 week if you end up having to play that player. So just keep in mind you're building your bench as well. It's not always a player that you're picking up because they have to start right immediately. Maybe you need to work on making your bench stronger because you need to have a solid bench in the event that one of your players gets hurt. So that is something to keep in mind. So Mac Hollins is definitely another ad. Jared Goff has been solid so far to start the season. Even on the road, he played solid. So Jared Goff, if he is still out there, that's another option for you as well at the quarterback position. So if you can snatch him up and he can be the quarterback to come off your bench, even if it's 1 week, you can't neglect any week. I don't care if you got 5 guys on bye a week. You still need to make sure that you add players who can help you every week. And again, it may be that bye week, which is the difference between you making the playoffs or you be at the house, not in the playoffs. Well, you be at your house, but you won't be in the playoffs. So keep that in mind. And also a wild card, Marlon Mack. Let's see if they're going to utilize him at all with the 49ers. We'll have to see what happens there. So Marlon Mack, another sneaky ad. And if nothing else, if you have Jeff Wilson, you already know 49er running backs always getting hurt. So if, say, Jeff Wilson was to get hurt, then you have that insurance policy of Marlon Mack, and it's going to reassure you that, hey, at least I have his backup and he can get in there. And Marlon Mack, in my opinion, is still a solid running back. Just has to find the right opportunity and remain healthy. Maybe this is that opportunity for him. All right, y'all. Leave some comments and let me know what players you are targeting on waivers for week 4. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content in fantasy football, which will help you compete at the highest level every week so you can achieve your ultimate goal in fantasy football. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. We have a great episode planned. We're going to talk about players you should sell high and players you should buy low. So tune in on Wednesday for another great episode. Have a good week.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.